Welcome back to Sleep Academy Online. In this class, we'll be talking about what happens when we don't sleep and the consequences of poor sleep. Sleep is prerequisite for human and animal survival. There is no substitute to sleep. Sleep is such a crucial part of our living that it can never be substituted by anything. So let's look at some consequences that are caused by chronic sleep loss. So for those who don't sleep well chronically, they are at risk for many different consequences for their health. We're going to briefly discuss them here. Chronic sleep loss has consequences on our heart. When we don't sleep enough, it raises our risk for developing chronic illnesses related to the heart, such as heart attack, heart disease, heart failure, irregular heartbeat, stroke, high blood pressure, and others. So why is it that our heart suffers? Because sleep plays a vital role in our body's ability to heal and repair our body vessels and the heart while we're sleeping. And according to Harvard Medical School, people with hypertension, which is high blood pressure, when they miss one night of sleep, their blood pressure is elevated through the entire next day. For those people who don't sleep enough, they are at risk for heart failure, therefore they're at risk of early death. So what are other consequences of poor sleep? Obviously, you can see them here, such as tremors, memory loss, type 2 diabetes. We have low sex drive. Sleep scientists say that sleep-deprived men and women have lower libidos and are less interested in sex, and therefore we have very low sex drive and low testosterone in men. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism in 2002 suggests that many men with sleep apnea, which is a sleep disorder, also have low testosterone levels. So it plays a very major role in your sex drive. As you can see here, when we don't get enough sleep, we can experience hallucinations, faster aging, obesity, weight loss, big problems for pregnant women, and it affects the baby. So how does a poor sleep affect our weight? Sleep deprivation stimulates food cravings, increases appetites, and it also turns up stress systems. It increases cortisol levels and stuffs up the hormones that keep weight in check. We have the hunger hormones, leptin and ghrelin, and when we don't sleep enough, those two hormones are messed up. So basically, the body doesn't know when to tell you to stop eating when you're full. So it loses that ability. So you constantly feeling hungry all day, and therefore you're craving junk foods or food that is comforting. Even after one sleepless night, our inflammation levels are very high. Chronic sleep loss also has a major impact on our emotional, psychological well-being. Well, therefore, we might suffer from depression and psychiatric problems, mood swings, decreases alertness and performance, cognitive impairment, higher stress, inability to cope with life, poor life quality, occupational injury, therefore injury at work, and higher car crashes chances. Also, those who don't sleep enough, they have symptoms of attention deficit disorder, ADD. That happens a lot in children. Those children who don't sleep enough, they go to school, and when they are very tired, they actually don't go to sleep. Like adults, when we are very tired, we tend to get very lazy and sleepy. Children goes the other way. They get very active or even hyperactive. That behavior is mistaken for ADD or ADHD as well. The first thing to do is basically check those children's sleep quality and sleep duration. So sleep also plays a major role on mental impairment, fatal in childhood growth retardation. So why is it that? Because during our sleep, we release human growth hormone. Therefore, we need it for muscle repair, and that is only released during deep sleep. If we don't get enough of that, of course, we don't grow when we are children, and also fetus while it's still in the womb, it doesn't grow. So, and when the child is born, it doesn't get enough sleep. Its growth is compromised. Poor sleep also plays a major role on relationship breakdown, increased mortality, weakened immunity, poor balance. Why does it relate on relationship breakdown? Simply because people who don't sleep enough, they lose their emotional and psychological stability, and therefore they don't cope with life stresses very well, and therefore relationships tend to break down. And as I mentioned, increased mortality is because, again, we get at higher risk for developing diseases that put us into early grave, and also weakened immunity. So during our sleep, our adaptive immune response revs up at night, which what it does, it makes sure all our microorganisms that we came across during the day are neutralized. So basically, the body goes, gets the white blood cells, kills all the pathogens and bacteria and viruses in our body during our sleep. However, when we are sleep deprived, our immune system response is compromised and we get sick and also struggle to recover from an illness. This is why when you have a cold or flu, your body just wants to put you to sleep, because body needs you to be asleep so the body can pick you up and help you recover. Also, those who don't sleep enough are at risk for mania, impulsive behavior, paranoia, anxiety, migraines, seizures, low fertility, suicidal thoughts, and early death. Sleep is necessary for our central nervous system to function properly. It enables our neurons that are busy during the day to create new pathways during the state of our brain relaxation during sleep, when we are asleep. But sleep deprivation leaves the brain exhausted, and it can negatively affect both short-term and long-term memory. Emotions can also be negatively impacted. This is why people go through a lot of emotional breakdown when they're tired, when they don't sleep enough, which is also leads to short temper and mood swings. Impaired cognitive function, decision-making, and lower levels of creativity are also a result of a lack of sleep, and alongside more serious symptoms such as I've mentioned here related to our psychological stability. Sleep plays a major impact on our emotional stability, psychological stability. I mentioned the immune system earlier. When we are in deep sleep, our body produces proteins to help our cells repair the damage that is caused during the day. Therefore, the immune system, which serves to produce protective cytokines and infectious fighting antibodies to kill off foreign substances like bacteria and viruses, will lose the power with a lack of sleep. Basically, then we are at risk and putting our body at a higher risk of developing diseases. When we don't sleep enough, we have problems processing information, inability to work clearly, psychosis, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which I mentioned earlier, ADHD, aches and pains all over the body, and autoimmune diseases. When we are asleep, our brain processes information that we accumulated during the day. So for us to consolidate that information for the next day recall, the body has to process information, and this process only happens in REM sleep. So we need to get enough REM so the brain can take all that information that we've accumulated during the day to put into short or long-term memory. Therefore, so the next day we can remember that information. And if we don't get enough REM or lose a whole night of sleep, we will be very forgetful the next day. And studies show that humans can survive 3 times longer without food than without sleep. Also, they've done laboratory studies on animals, and they revealed that mice who were deprived of all stages of sleep, including non-REM and REM, only lived for between 11 and 30 days, where typical life expectancy of a mice is about 2 years. How important sleep is, and when we are deprived completely, we will die very quickly. Obviously, for a human, we can survive longer than this, but there is such a thing, such a sleep disorder called fatal insomnia. So if somebody suffers from fatal insomnia, those people don't sleep beyond N1. Therefore, the body is very exhausted, and it's a neurological disorder, and therefore people usually die within 3 years, but that is very, very rare. Now, as you can see, how essential is sleep to our life. So I wanted you to go again through the whole list of risk factors for poor sleep, and I want you to remember that sleep is very, very crucial for our health in many, many ways, and many processes just don't happen during waking hours without any sleep. There's some processes are switched on when we are awake, and some processes are switched off when we are awake. So it's like a switch on and off button. However, when we are asleep, that process is reversed. So when we are sleeping, the processes that were switched on when we are awake are now switched off, and those ones which were switched off when we were awake are now switched on. So the body has that mechanism to switch on and off the mechanisms. But however, for that to happen, we need to be either asleep or awake. We need to have both. So we'll talk more about it in the next class.